Welcome back to Footnotes and Folly, and to the very end of Herodotus' Histories. I am Pemberton. This is part 52, the last. Herodotus closes not with trumpets, but with two dark tales. First, a terrible story from within the royal house itself. Xerxes' tangled passion, the jealousy of his queen, and the dreadful revenge taken on the innocent wife of his brother Masistes, to remind us what absolute power does to those who hold it. Then the Greeks cross to the Hellespont and take Sestos, the last Persian fortress in Europe, and put its cruel governor Artayctes to a hard death on the very shore where Xerxes had bridged the sea. And Herodotus ends, as he loves to, with an old saying of Cyrus that soft lands breed soft men. Let us finish the history.
At that time, while Xerxes was in Sestos, he had, it seems, a passionate desire for the wife of Masistes, who was also there. She could not be bent to his will by the messages he sent her, and he did not wish to use force because he had regard for his brother Masistes. The same consideration also held the woman back, for she knew well that force would not be used against her. So Xerxes abstained from everything else and tried to bring about the marriage of his own son Darius with the daughter of this woman and of Masistes, supposing that if he did so he would obtain the mother more easily. After arranging the betrothal and performing all the customary rites, he went away to Susa. When he arrived there and brought the woman into his own house for Darius, he ceased trying to win the wife of Masistes. Changing his inclination, he conceived a desire for the wife of Darius, who was the daughter of Masistes, and obtained her. The name of this woman was Artayctes. As time went on, however, this became known in the following way. Amstress, the wife of Xerxes, had woven a mantle, large, richly worked in many colors and worth seeing, and she gave it to Xerxes. He was greatly pleased, put it on, and went to Artayctes. Being greatly pleased with her as well, he told her to ask whatever she wished to be given in return for the favors she had granted him, saying that she would obtain whatever she asked. Since she was destined to perish miserably together with her whole house, she asked Xerxes whether he would give her whatever she requested. He, supposing that she would ask for anything rather than what she did, promised this and swore to it. Once he had sworn, she boldly asked for the mantle. Xerxes tried every means of persuasion, not wishing to give it to her, for no other reason than that he feared Amstress. Amstress already had some suspicion of the truth, and he feared that by this gift he would be discovered in the act. He offered Artayctes cities, gold in any quantity, and an army that no one else should command except herself, for an army is a thoroughly Persian gift. But since he could not persuade her, he gave her the mantle. She was overjoyed by the gift, wore it, and took pride in it. Amstress was informed that Artayctes had the mantle. When she learned what was being done, she was not angry with the woman, but supposed that her mother was the cause and was bringing this about. She therefore planned destruction for the wife of Masistes. She waited until her husband Xerxes had a royal feast set before him. This feast is served once a year on the day on which the king was born, and its name in Persian is Tikta, which in the tongue of the Hellenes means complete. On this occasion alone the king washes his head, and then he gives gifts to the Persians. Amstress waited for this day, and then asked Xerxes to give her the wife of Masistes. He considered it a strange and dreadful thing to hand over his brother's wife to her, especially since the woman was innocent in this matter, for he understood why Amstress was making the request. Yet because Amstress kept urgently entreating him, and because he was compelled by the rule that among them it is impossible for one who makes a request when a royal feast is laid before the king to fail to obtain it, at last, very much against his will, he consented. In delivering the woman to Amstress, he told her to do as she desired. Meanwhile, he sent for his brother and spoke to him. Masistes, you are the son of Darius and my brother, and besides this you are a man of worth. I say to you, live no longer with this wife with whom you now live. Instead of her I give you my daughter, live with her as your wife. But the wife whom you now have do not keep, for it does not seem good to me that you should keep her. Master, what an unprofitable speech this is that you make to me, telling me to send away a wife by whom I have sons who are grown into young men, and daughters, one of whom you yourself even took as a wife for your son, and who herself, as it happens, is very much to my mind. You tell me to send her away and take your daughter as my wife. O king, I think it a very great thing that I am judged worthy of your daughter, but nevertheless I will do neither of these things. Do not force me to do such a thing. For your daughter another husband will be found who is in no way inferior to me. Let me, I beg you, still live with my own wife. Masistes answered in words like these. Xerxes was stirred to anger and told him that this, then, was his case. He would not give him his daughter as wife, nor would Masistes any longer live with the wife he had, so that he might learn to accept what was offered to him. When Masistes heard this, he went out, first saying, Master, surely you have not brought ruin upon me. During this interval, while Xerxes was speaking with his brother, Amstress had sent the spearmen of Xerxes to bring the wife of Masistes, and she was doing shameful outrage to her. She cut away her breasts and threw them to the dogs. She cut off her nose, ears, lips, and tongue, and sent her back home thus mutilated. Masistes had not yet heard any of this, but supposing that some evil had fallen on him, he came running to his house. When he saw his wife thus mutilated, he immediately took counsel with his sons, and set out for Bactria, together with his sons, and no doubt some others also, intending to make the province of Bactria revolt, and to do the greatest possible injury to the king. This would indeed have happened, as I imagine, if he had reached the land of the Bactrians and Sacans before being overtaken, for they were very attached to him, and he was governor of the Bactrians. But Xerxes, being informed that he was doing this, sent an army after him as he was on his way, and slew both him and his sons and his army. So much, then, for what happened concerning the passion of Xerxes and the death of Masistes. The Hellenes who had set out from Mycale toward the Hellespont first moored their ships around Lecton, being stopped from sailing by winds. From there they came to Abydos and found that the bridges had been broken up, though they had expected to find them still stretched across the straits, and this had been the main reason they came to the Hellespont. So the Peloponnesians with LibriTTS resolved to sail back to Hellas, while the Athenians and their commanders in Thippos determined to stay behind there and attempt the Chersonese. The Peloponnesians sailed away, and the Athenians crossed over from Abydos to the Chersonese and began to besiege Sestos. Men from the cities around Sestos had gathered there when they heard that the Hellenes had arrived at the Hellespont, since Sestos was the greatest stronghold in that region. Especially there had come from the city of Oiabazos, a Persian who had brought to Sestos the ropes of the bridges. The inhabitants of the city were Aeolians, natives of the country, but a large number of Persians and their allies were living with them. Artayctes was despot of the province as governor under Xerxes, a Persian, but a desperate and reckless man. He had also deceived the king during his march against Athens, by taking away from Elias the things belonging to Protesilaus the son of Iphiclos. At Elias in the Chersonese is the tomb of Protesilaus, with a sacred enclosure around it, where there were many treasures, gold and silver cups, bronze, clothing, and other offerings. Artayctes carried these off as plunder after the king granted them to him. He deceived Xerxes by saying that there was there the house of a Hellene who had made an expedition against the king's land, had met his deserts, and had been killed. He asked that this man's house be given to him, so that everyone might learn not to make expeditions against the king's land. By saying this, he was likely to persuade Xerxes easily enough to give him a man's house, since Xerxes did not suspect what he intended. When Artayctes said that Protesilaus had made an expedition against the king's land, it must be understood that the Persians consider all Asia to be theirs and to belong to their reigning king. So, when the things had been given to him, he brought them from Elias to Sestos, sowed crops in the sacred enclosure, and occupied it as his own. Whenever he came to Elias, he had intercourse with women in the inner cell of the temple. Now he was being besieged by the Athenians, though he had made no preparation for a siege and had not expected the Hellenes to come, for they fell upon him, one might say, inevitably. When autumn came and the siege was still going on, the Athenians began to be vexed at being absent from their own land, and at the same time unable to capture the fortress. They asked their commanders to lead them home. The commanders said they would not do so until either they had taken the town or the public authority of the Athenians sent for them home, and so the soldiers endured their present state. Those within the walls, however, had now come to the greatest misery, so much so that they boiled down the girths of their beds and used them for food. When they no longer had even these, the Persians, together with Artayctes and Oiabazos, ran away and departed by night, climbing down the back part of the wall where the place was least guarded by the enemy. When day came, the men of the Chersonese signaled to the Athenians from the towers about what had happened and opened the gates to them. Most of the Athenians went in pursuit, and the rest occupied the city. Oiabazos, while escaping into Thrace, was caught by the Absinthian Thracians and sacrificed to their native god Pastoros with their rites, while the rest who were with him they slaughtered in another manner. But Artayctes and his companions, who started their flight later and were overtaken a little distance above Aegispotamoi, defended themselves for a considerable time. Some of them were killed and others were taken alive. The Hellenes bound these men and brought them to Sestos, including Artayctes himself in bonds together with his son. Then, according to the men of the Chersonese, while one of those guarding the prisoners was frying dried fish, a portent occurred. The dried fish, when placed on the fire, began to leap and struggle just as if they were newly caught fish. The others gathered around and marveled at the portent, but Artayctes, seeing it, called to the man who was frying the fish and spoke to him. "Stranger of Athens, do not be at all afraid of this portent, since it has not appeared for you, but for me. Protesilaus, who dwells at Elias, signifies by this that although he is dead and his body is dried like those fish, yet he has power given him by the gods to exact vengeance from the man who wrongs him. Now therefore I wish to impose this penalty for him. In place of the things I took from the temple, I will pay down 100 talents to the god, and moreover as ransom for myself and my son I will pay 200 talents to the Athenians, if my life is spared." Thus Artayctes promised, but he did not prevail upon the commanders in Thippos. The people of Elias, desiring to take vengeance for Protesilaus, asked that he be put to death, and the commander's own inclination tended to the same conclusion. Therefore they brought him to the headland where Xerxes had made the passage across, or, as some say, to the hill above the town of Masistes. There they nailed him to boards and hung him up, and they stoned his son to death before Artayctes' own eyes. After doing this, they sailed away to Hellas, taking with them, besides other things, the ropes of the bridges, in order to dedicate them as offerings in the temples. For that year nothing further happened than this. Now a forefather of this Artayctes, who was hung up, was that Artaxerxes who set before the Persians a proposal which they accepted and brought before Cyrus. The proposal was as follows. since Zeus grants leadership to the Persians, and among all men to you, Cyrus, by destroying Astyages, come now, since the land we possess is small and also rugged, let us leave it and live in another land that is better. There are many such lands close at hand, and many also at a greater distance. If we take one of them, we shall be held in greater reverence by more men. It is reasonable, too, that men who are rulers should do such things. For when will there ever be a fairer opportunity than now, when we rule many nations and the whole of Asia? Cyrus heard this and was not surprised by the proposal. He told them to do so if they wished, but he also warned them and bade them prepare, in that case, to be no longer rulers but subjects. From lands that are not rugged, men who are not rugged are apt to come forth, since it does not belong to the same land to produce both admirable fruits of the earth and men who are good in war. So the Persians acknowledged that Cyrus was right and departed from his presence, their opinion defeated by his. They chose rather to live on poor land and be rulers, than to sow crops in a level plain and be slaves to others.
And there it ends, the whole vast history of Herodotus of Halicarnassos, from the first quarrel of East and West to the last Persian flag hold down in Europe, from Croesus on his pyre to the 300 in the pass and the wreck of a king's pride at Salamis and Plataea. He set out, he told us at the very beginning, so that the great and wonderful deeds of both Greeks and barbarians might not be without their glory, and after 2400 years, they are not. Thank you, truly, for sitting with the whole of it, all 9 books to the end. I have been Professor Reginald St. John Pemberton. Mind the footnotes and beware the folly.